What's up, guys? This is episode 3 of the Four Lifters by Lifters podcast, and today we have Erik Purcell from MPR Endurance. MPR Endurance, USA Sambo. What else do you have going on?
Mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, striking, boxing. We kind of do it all.
Cool. What, one of my biggest questions is really like, what's the difference? Like, you tried to explain to me the Sambo stuff before, and it was a little over my head. Do you want to dig into what that is?
Yeah, so a lot of people are familiar with mixed martial arts. You know, you're grappling, punching, kicking, striking, submissions, and all that kind of stuff. So Sambo's been around for a pretty long time. It was initially a sport. Initially, really wasn't even a sport, but it all started with Joseph Stalin actually back in Russia. So what he wanted to do is essentially produce a sport, produce a combatives martial art that essentially the government and all of the military could be trained in, things like that. It became a huge sport. It's basically a combination of judo and wrestling.
Okay.
So you have pins, you have submissions, you have all that fun stuff and throws, but there is also a combat side to it as well. So you have sport and combat, and so we're also like a new Olympic sport as well too, which is going to be exciting. But in combat, sambo that looks very similar to mixed martial arts. So not only are there throws and takedowns and pins and stuff, but you're also punching, kicking, headbutts. We do it all. So you headbutt somebody and just knock them out.
So is this like a Russian version of like Krav, like in origin?
Well, origin, yeah, kind of,
Okay.
right? So the difference is though with something like Krav Maga. Krav Maga is specifically supposed to be just a combative training program, where Sambo is actually sports as well.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's similar kind of origin, but the Russia they molded it into something that could be taught. It could be taught to kids, could be taught to pretty much everyone as well.
So you guys have a lot of different programs that you're teaching at NPR. So everything you listed is something that you have an individual program for.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you have something that kind of like puts them all together too?
Well, basically, your mixed martial arts is kind of the focal point in the center of what we do, especially considering not only are you learning mixed martial arts, the sport, and things like that. We have like a lot of fighters, but just for general self-defense. If you're a police officer, we have a lot of women that want to do mixed martial arts, obviously for self-defense purposes. It's going to be the end-all, be-all to learning how to really defend yourself. And that's our primary goal, is to make sure everyone that walks through the door has a better understanding of self-defense. But we do have a lot of other athletes that as well are high-level, competitors in the sport.
So do you have people that compete in each section of
Yeah.
MMA?
Yeah, yeah. So we have people, mixed martial arts fighters, some very high level guys, especially around here. We have in our combat sambo program, we are the United States Training Center for that. So I'm one of the USA coaches. I'm also one of the USA athletes. We have a lot of the United States athletes directly out of our gym, as well as
Okay.
some of the other coaches as well. We've won probably almost more medals for combat sambo out of athletes from our gym than probably combined in the United States.
Do you feel like I feel like some sports tend to migrate to certain like geographic areas. Do you feel like this area just kind of is very competitive in sambo?
Well, it's becoming more competitive. We've had back in the 90s when I first started sambo, sambo was a little bit more popular. You had jiu-jitsu and sambo were kind of like neck and neck.
Okay.
There were some sambo places and there was really only one or two jiu-jitsu places you could train in. And what jiu-jitsu did, they did a phenomenal job of, they have the belt system, they have a very good structure, and they were able to build the sport in the United States, where unfortunately sambo kind of fell off the map for a while. But there's been a major resurgence lately because you have a lot of UFC fighters or sambo guys, and we're doing a lot of the big push in the United States directly out of our gym as well, because we're always at the world championships, and I mean we're literally competing and fighting around the world.
So how does obviously jiu-jitsu and sambo are different sports, but is somebody that is good at jiu-jitsu, like I believe one of your coaches is a pretty high level guy for
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, how does that translate over to sambo?
Well, you So this is where jiu-jitsu gets like a little complicated. When jiu-jitsu kind of originated back in Japan, you had Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And that was like your first jiu-jitsu. And that was a very well-rounded self-defense martial art. You had like a lot of throws and takedowns, and they talked about there was like a lot of weapons retention. It was really your end-all be-all of self-defense, essentially. Out of that, judo was formed out of Japanese jiu-jitsu, and then out of judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu was formed.
Okay.
So now we have kind of a sport style jiu-jitsu is taught in the United States, which a lot of times there's not a lot of jiu-jitsu places don't really teach many takedowns. It's very we're on the ground, we start on the ground oriented, and that is phenomenal for if you do end up on the ground in a fight. And I think jiu-jitsu is when you want to speak directly about learning ground grappling, that's the end all be all. It's as advanced as you get, and it's constantly changing and evolving. Now, if you want to prevent the fight from going to the ground and you want to be able to control your surroundings better,
Right.
you're definitely better off at this day and age learning something like Sambo or Judo or wrestling for that. Because what that's going to do is hopefully prevent you from even going to the ground. Going to the ground is really the last thing you want to have happen in the middle of a street fight. Because I could take you down, but I don't know if you have friends that are going to come and start soccer kicking me in the head. You know, we don't know what's going on. So
Fair. Yeah.
I would rather just grab you, take you down, control you, and have the ability to run, have the ability to know what's going on around me at all times. So old school jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu, you can learn that and know kind of everything. This day and age, everything's a little bit more segmented. So for your ground stuff, you've got your Brazilian jiu-jitsu, everything like that. It's phenomenal. But standing, wrestling, judo, Sambo, you're not going to get any better than that, really.
So we have a good amount of customers that participate in jiu-jitsu, and one of the reasons they like it so much is just the mental game of it.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of them relate it to like chess,
Yeah.
where you can't really have the perfect formula to win. Do you see that a lot with like the people that not everybody wants to be the best in the world. So with
Yeah.
your membership base, do you see a lot of people that take it just for the strategic like value?
Yeah. So here's the real beauty of jiu-jitsu, and this sets jiu-jitsu apart from even Sambo. It sets it apart from wrestling, sets it apart from everything else. The beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu is a lot of jiu-jitsu is about kind of taking someone's energy and using it against them. So, for example, if you're a good wrestler and you take me down and I'm on my back, I can use my guard. I don't have to use muscle to really defeat you, essentially. I can use it through a series of techniques, and I can kind of play chess, set you up. You don't have to be a D1 athlete to be absolutely phenomenal, to be a complete savage in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu isn't about being the strongest, fastest, anything like that. It's really not. And that's the beauty of it. So no matter who you are, you can come in and jiu-jitsu's full of a bunch of nerds right now. And I love it. All the guys, the baddest dudes on the planet, they look like a bunch of millennial little nerds, right? And they've all got, the same look to them, and they will strangle you faster than anybody. You would never, back in the day, we've got this meathead, idea of who the tough guys are. They're big muscle dudes and, tattoos and like bikers and, and shit like that. Wrong. The baddest dudes on the planet have their pants cuffed up. They got, they're wearing flip-flops. They're about 150 pounds soaking wet, and they will wreck your world. It's crazy.
So one of the things when I was in college, I went to Penn State, and of course, like you have with 48,000 undergrad students, you're gonna have like fights and parties and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
happens.
yeah, for sure.
So one time I was at a party and I was on my way home, and a kid started just running his mouth to me and said his hands were legal weapons, and
The old Barney Pfeiffer shit from like.
I guess like I that was the first time I'd ever heard anything like that. Do fighters actually have to like register their hands? Is that a thing?
No,
It's-
and I would love to have these things registered. I could be more obnoxious to my wife.
You have a barcode on your knuckle.
Yeah, but like, listen, baby, you don't want me to use these. I've heard of stuff like that forever. To be honest with you, I don't know if that was ever a real thing or not, or anywhere. Maybe it is in some state. I mean, yeah, states do some weird shit, But But I would, even if it was really available, to be honest with you, that's something I could never imagine anyone ever really doing. Because, I mean, I could imagine it would just set you up for so many legal ramifications if you ever had to get in a fight or if you ever started a fight. You know, it's it'd just be a bad idea across the board. But as fighters, though, we have to be extremely careful with dealing with situations because when people do know you're a fighter, ironically, they kind of want to start more shit with you for some reason, which doesn't make any sense to me. But
Yeah, we actually saw that at college a lot. We were on the powerlifting team, and I mean, other than most of the linemen on the football team, like the group that we were with were the biggest kids.
yeah,
But for whatever reason, people always wanted to start something just
crazy.
because it was like a notch on the belt type of thing. You know, if
Yeah.
they can beat up the biggest power lifter that's on campus and
Yeah, yeah. I get the one too where I'll go hang out with some people and it kind of comes up of like what I do for a living and then all of a sudden they're constantly like, oh yeah, could you take me to fight? And they're like, are you sure? You know, and that's what the whole like next like 2 hours is. I'm just sitting there like, no, I don't want to fight you.
it's like
And
a bad
and then
dad
yeah,
joke.
if we did fight, I would kill you. But it's never gonna come to that. Like, look, can we stop? Can we just enjoy the picnic? You know, we're at. You know, so yeah, you just have to be extremely careful, and you'll see a lot of fighters. We get really good at walking away from these situations, get really good at diffusing them. No one wants to fight. Fighters, the last thing a fighter wants to do is fight anyone. We get paid to fight. We're professional athletes. No one wants to start any shit on the street. But fighters will stick up for people, though. That's one thing. If you typically do see videos of fighters fighting in the street, usually it has to do with them protecting someone else or something like that. Because we can get sued. You know, it's dangerous stuff.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask. Is most of the time when I talk to anybody with any fighting experience, they never get into fights,
Yeah.
and I think it's just they can recognize it ahead of time,
Yeah.
and they can kind of just get out of the situation.
Yeah, there's two things at play, really. You know, number one, the more you fight and the more you learn about fighting, the more you realize that every fight, you don't really know what you're getting into. And you can't look at anyone really on the street and know exactly who they are, what they're about. Do they have weapons? Do they not have weapons? Are they crazy? Whatever. So the more you fight, the more you learn. It's like a risk reward thing, you know? It's like, why do I even want to get in a fight? Because I understand the dangers and the pitfalls. I could get, even professional athletes, you know, could get sucker punched or could get hit with one punch and you could get knocked out and you could hit your head on the concrete, die, something like that. But the other thing at play as well, too, is we just don't want to fight. You know, it's not worth our time as well. You know, because it's a lose-lose situation. You know, we beat your ass, even if you deserve it. You know, now we're going to jail
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. I feel like it wouldn't make much sense in anything, but when you're in a street fight or a bar fight or something like that, it's an emotional trigger.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you guys are fighting, it's very like strategic, and
Yeah, yeah.
you've done it so many times that you're able to remove like the emotion completely out of the equation.
And that's exactly what we have to do. You know, you never want to fight emotionally. I mean, really, you don't never even want to make any decisions emotionally. You know, really in life, or let alone go fight somebody. And the longer you do this as a martial artist, you're able to. A lot of these martial artists, they learn how to really kind of control those emotions, anyways. And that's a great thing about learning how to do all this stuff and fighting. And you have no choice when someone's on your back and they've got their hooks in and they've got their arm around your neck and they're choking you unconscious and you can feel yourself starting to go unconscious. The more you freak out and struggle, the faster you go out. So you have to learn how to lower your heart rate. You have to learn how to think your way tactically through the situation to unlock the grip, to remain calm, all those things. And when you take something like jujitsu, especially, you're going to learn that no matter what. Your first day in, you're going to learn how to slow down your heart rate. You're going to learn how to think your way through things. That's why it's so great for cops, police officers, because that way, when you're in intense situations and you have to make, these crazy potentially life-changing decisions very quickly, you were able to do it in a calmer manner.
I feel like it would be a good anti-anxiety training mechanism.
Totally. Jiu-jitsu is different than all of the other sports, where jiu-jitsu is very zen. You know, you get these people in here and they just sit down and they like to work their way through positions, that chess match and all that kind of stuff. And it's very cerebral. It's very almost like hippie-ish. You'll get people, because you don't have to be, once again, that D1 stud athlete. You get people that, like I said, I mean, no muscle, no, they weren't athletes, they didn't play sports in high school, and you'll see them on the mats just murking people, just all over them. And you realize that, yeah, when you do understand things from a technical aspect, you're able to get past any physical limitations you have. I mean, I've seen people with no legs doing jujitsu. You name it across the board. I mean, we have every make and model of people you could possibly imagine. People with Down syndrome. I mean, people that are blind. I mean, everyone can do jujitsu and improve their lives from jujitsu. Now, a sport like Sambo, where we're grabbing and people are getting flipped upside down and they're getting thrown, and it's very explosive. It could be a little bit more dangerous. It's more wear and tear on the body. You don't get that same zen kind of thing with those. That's going to attract your super high level athletes, into that. And so you kind of have a little bit more of a specific demographic for stuff like Sambo or wrestling. MMA, you are attracting a lot of different people for the self defense aspect. But in those sports, particularly, you're going to get a kind of standard athlete for those.
I feel like MMA kind of has a little bit of sex appeal to it, just because of its publicity. Being on the ESPN and everything else, and Joe Rogan talking about it. I feel like it's really blown up over the last 6 to 8 years, really.
Yeah. So I've been doing this forever, and we were always waiting for eventually for MMA to get to Madison Square Garden. That was going to be a big thing. And then eventually as well, more and more sponsors getting involved and stuff like that. But it is a sexy sport because people are recognizing its truth. It's when you look at combative martial arts, or you want to talk about who's tough and toughness in guys. I mean, it doesn't get any tougher. You have to fight another man for 15 minutes or even 25 minutes. I mean, most street fights are like 30 seconds, So when you get in there, I mean, you're looking at the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, and they are. They're the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. But guys that walk in and high level MMA mixed martial artists, because not only are they fighting, but most of them are cutting weight. They're doing a lot of other things as well. They're phenomenal athletes. They're some of the most dedicated people. I mean, we're training 2 or 3 times a day, and you're training through injuries, you're training through stress and the daily grind. And these people are just badass people.
Is the training is something that kind of fascinates me. It's just the length of training. But are you guys training that long year round, or is that only when they have fights scheduled?
That's a good question. So back in the day, the way people used to really kind of run their fight camps, they would kind of be sitting on the couch, and then maybe 2 months out from a fight, they would get up, start training, get back into shape, and then go out and fight. Now, because of the level of competition in the sport, and because there's more promotions and there's more opportunities to fight and stuff like that, fighters need to be ready year round. So essentially what we do is, even when they don't have a fight scheduled, we like to keep them around that 70-75% ready to go. It's different for some fighters that maybe won't have to cut weight. If you're a heavyweight, you can kind of dial it back like a little bit more. But when we have guys like Pat Sabatini and all these guys that are very close to getting calls from the UFC, they have to stay in shape because they could get a call to the big show, within a few days' notice. And so we have to keep them ready to go at all times.
Have you had anybody go up to the UFC level?
Yeah.
What's that experience like?
It's good. It's a lot of fun to make it there to that show. I mean, we've had guys on the Ultimate Fighter, or not the Ultimate Fighter, the Dana White Contender Series, the UFC. We've had like a lot of big high level fights and stuff like that, and it's a great time. It's cool to see. It's a lot of fun for the fighters. It's probably more fun for all the other students and members that come to the gyms around those people, because it gives them like a little sense of validation. And I mean, we're professional. I'm a professional athlete. I've been around all the major stars and people you see that are on TV now, all the fighters. I've known all these guys for the most part before they even started fighting. Okay. So for me, I mean, it's a little bit of validation, and it's great, and I love to see the fighters do it. But for everyone else involved, that maybe even help get that fighter there, their training partners, the other members in the gym. I mean,
Yeah.
it's exceptionally cool for them, and that's what I give it like a lot of joy out of seeing them like super stoked about it.
Is it one of those things like when you have an event like that, like you can't sleep the night before, you're just like excited? Yeah, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. And
You're running everything through your head about a million times, but that's similar to kind of what we do already. Between these big fights, and we have a lot of championship athletes and champs and stuff like that, and you're constantly, as a coach at least, I'm constantly playing every scenario in my head. And even leading up to the fight, I mean, as we're getting ready to walk in the fight, I've had guys in the cage. I mean, and they're doing the announcements, and I grab them. I'm standing there at the cage, and like, listen, okay, I want you to do this, this, and this, like right now, like let's go. Like, sometimes we throw stuff in at the last minute. I'll see a guy in the cage pacing around. We're getting ready to fight, and then I'll just kind of see something. We'll come up with something real quick. We're like, listen, all right, duck, throw the overhand. He's gonna fall forward. I see the way he's standing here already. So sometimes you can pick up on things pretty quickly as well too, which is fun.
so you can almost tell by like somebody's posture and how they're holding themselves what they're going to be dominant in.
Sometimes, yeah. So what happens is sometimes you can tell by people's mannerisms. You can tell if they're going to come out like a little sluggish. Sometimes you don't know these things until they're standing in there and they're facing off. You can look at someone's body language. Sometimes it's complete bullshit. Sometimes you think but for the most part, you can kind of see things in there. And when you're used to studying people and behavior, and you're looking at reach and range, sometimes it's hard to tell how long a guy's arms are until he's standing there, basically in crowd pleasers. And he's got his arms hanging down. You're like, oh, whoa, okay, he's got an extra inch or two on his range. Stay back an extra inch or two. Stay back an extra inch or two. We're yelling that. So some things you pick up kind of like late, but we're always making like these adjustments and things like that as well.
Are you guys hoping to have any like UFC fights coming up? Is there anybody that's on the radar or has a contract signed?
Well, we don't know what's going on right now with the entire fighting landscape. We've got a couple guys that have some championship fights coming up when they decide to start fights again locally.
Okay.
And they're local big promotions too. They're kind of like they're national promotions, but they're locally based out of here, I guess. So we have some guys getting ready to go. We've got a lot of really good amateur fighters coming up, but there's this backlog of fights that needs to happen as well too before we can get everyone in and fighting once they resume.
So if you were to pick somebody, like let's say you want them to be number one in the UFC, I guess like a mid-range weight class, what are you looking for, and like at what age, and all that stuff? Like, is there has to be like I know for at least in powerlifting, I can almost look at somebody and tell you if they're going to be any good or not.
Yeah.
So what age would somebody need to start training, and what are the physical attributes that you'd be looking for?
So ideally, yeah, you would love to have some kid roll into the gym at like 9 or 10, and you just take them and just mold them. Those things are hard to do. We do have a little kid in our gym right now, a young guy, and his name's Tommy Boyce, and he's one of those kids that you could look at in another 6 or 7 years, could be fighting before he's even 18. He's already a state champ wrestler. He's a Pan Am Jiu-Jitsu champion. The kid does everything, and he's super motivated. Like, he wants to come to the gym every day, all day, and stay in the gym. He's not one of those kids that the parents push him. They don't push him at all. They kind of sit back. Super motivated. Every day he just wants to fight. That's all he talks about. And he talks when he speaks. He's got his Instagram page. He talks like a champion.
Yeah.
Motivated. I'm training today. And the kid's like 9 or 10 years old. It's crazy. He's a nut. And we've had him since he's been 4 years old. So he's one. And even with him, there's so much promise and potential there. But I even tell the parents, I'm like, look, so many things could happen. Let's just, let him do his own thing. Let's not push him. But he's one of those kids that, yeah, could be an absolute killer one day. But really, MMA is a crazy sport. We have a lot of crossover athletes now as well. So we have people that were never even have done MMA. They played other sports. They're very high level, maybe football players, or we're getting a lot of those crossover D1 athletes now coming into MMA that for the first time are getting in, hitting the bags and stuff. But they're already such great athletes. They pick it up so quickly.
We always said that about CrossFit. CrossFit, and don't get me wrong, like powerlifting, bodybuilding in general, is usually just second rate. Like people that played football and had an injury, couldn't make it, so they powerlift now, something like that. And we used to say that about CrossFit is like if there were like if LeBron James or somebody with that genetic
Oh yeah,
structure
yeah,
did CrossFit, I mean nobody would be able to compete.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
so, it's always as all of these different niche sports get more popular, it'll be interesting to see some of the genetics go towards them
yeah, yeah,
because there's now money there.
yeah,
So if you're genetically gifted, you know, 10 years ago, well, even right now, you're not going to be a power lifter. There's
yeah.
no money in that. You're never going to get paid, at least with the way the landscape is now. But now that MMA and UFC is just so big, it'd be interesting to see how the earlier attraction of the higher level athletes will
Yeah.
change the landscape.
You're going to get that a lot, when things like UFC kind of first started, or not even first started, but we'll say even like in the 2000s, you had a lot of phenomenal martial artists, but they weren't like D1 athletes, but they understood their martial arts, they understood their craft. And then you started sprinkling in a couple of those D1 athletes that understood martial arts as well. So you had a very inconsistent landscape. You had guys that on paper seemed like they'd be phenomenal fighters, and they were at the time, they were okay. But you had a very inconsistent, you had some guys that were studs and some guys that sucked in the UFC or like the higher level, like fighting, leagues and stuff like that. Now everyone's good. Everyone can, jump over the building. Everyone can run fast. For the most part, everyone they're phenomenal. But now you're seeing women's MMA is very similar to the early 2000s MMA. You have a lot of women in there that aren't D1 athletes. They're very good martial artists, but they're slow. Um, they're they're not exactly up on that par yet. And then you have some women athletes that are phenomenal, but it's a little inconsistent right now. But you're starting to see over the every year the consistency is building in women's MMA now as well too. Where pretty soon women's MMA across the board, every woman that fights is going to be an absolute savage, and some of them are so good. But it's very similar to kind of a little bit more of the earlier days of men's MMA where you had some inconsistencies.
Just because the barrier to entry was lower,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
just wasn't as many people doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially in a sport like mixed martial arts or anything like that, they do typically at least in the beginning stages of it attract more men, stuff like that. But now, women want to have some fun too and get in there and punch some people, and you're seeing it more and more and more women training a little bit more heavily, women getting into it, and I love to see it because I have three daughters. And since they've been kids, I've had them training and learning how to defend themselves and things like that, and they're tough.
So if a kid out of high school wants to come train with you and they had a high school background of competing, what sport are you hoping that they compete in?
Wrestling,
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even close. Wrestling. Every once in a while, though, you'll get some kids that come out from some good boxing gyms too, and that's good. But wrestling, if you want to build a fighter and you had to start from one martial art, I mean, across the board, almost universally, everyone's going to tell you wrestling.
So like I guess they're used to cutting weight, right? So that's a big part of like the mental
Yeah.
building over the years. But obviously, wrestling would be the closest. But are football players like baseball players? They just not disciplined, or you just don't see, they don't have the experience level during
Well,
that.
so wrestling, not only the cutting weight thing, but before I ever stepped in a cage to fight, I mean, I had hundreds of wrestling matches. So I've already been used to being out there one on one with someone with crowds of people hollering, "You fucking suck," stuff like that. So we've been used to that, So not only are you used to cutting weight, you're used to that just grind and the whole mental aspect of it because it is a grind. You're used to the one-on-one competition. Football players are nice because typically they're super high-level athletes. They're already used to car crashes every day, just running into each other. So typically they have a decent mindset for this. They have almost a violent mindset,
Okay.
which fits in well with MMA. We don't get too many baseball players because it's just such a different mindset. But any of those sports where typically there is some kind of like hockey, people are beating each other up or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's easier for people like that to probably step foot into a mixed martial arts gym and start doing that as well.
So I remember, at least at your old facility, you have like a kind of like the size gym that we have in here.
Yeah.
What style of training do you push your athletes towards? Do you build like custom programs per athlete, or do you have a general basis on what you guys do to build strength and endurance?
So we do all that kind of stuff primarily on an individual basis. So we do have like our fighter training that we run everyone through on a weekly basis that is open to our athletes, and it's more of just conditioning type stuff. Build a little bit of strength with that, but you have to really look at things on an individual basis when you're talking about a fighter, because if they are getting ready to fight, if they're in a camp, then obviously you don't really want them strength training and
Right.
stuff like that. So we we kind of put them in the right direction with certain personal trainers, certain things like that, depending upon what they need. But it is an individual thing.
Okay.
So we do kind of put them with the right trainers they need to be with. But as a whole, we all kind of work with everyone as far as their general fitness and things like that. We do like group training where we go for runs, do all that kind of stuff as well. But there's a when we are building strength though in our fighters, it's very important for us to work out a certain way so we're not putting on muscle. Because with a lot of our athletes, we have to cut weight. So we have to do like a lot of stuff like sediv style training, sediv sets, stuff like that, where you're not going to build big, that volume of muscle and jack your weight up.
So you're more like concerned about the conditioning of the muscle rather than the size or the
Yeah,
strength.
yeah. So, there are some things you can do to build some strength in your muscles without developing size and stuff like that. So we'll pay attention to those a little bit. But overall, primarily for us, it is marathon training what we have to do because fights are so long. But we also have to build our fighters anaerobically as well too to make sure like they have those bursts and explosiveness and stuff like that as well.
So it almost kind of sounds like you guys do like some form of cross training.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
is that accurate? Like it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
CrossFit, but it's maybe a little bit more structured.
yeah.
So are you guys using like the rowers, the ski ergs, the assault bikes, that kind of stuff? Are you guys big on that?
Everything,
Yeah.
everything. So we have a big course outside of the back of my gym, tons of tractor tires and sleds and battle ropes and stuff like that. So we have a whole training course basically we set up outside, and then everything we have inside the gym as well. We've got your aerodynes, rowers, and weightlifting equipment, kettlebells, and all of that kind of stuff as well. But
So I guess the last time I saw you, other than coming into the store, I was at your gym to help out with some dieting.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, why do fighters eat so bad?
Oh my god,
Like,
kills me.
I've never seen a diet as bad as a fighter's diet.
Because a lot of these fighters, they're extremists. They have this extremist mentality where what happens is if you take them to a bar, they're gonna fucking drink everything till they pass out. If you want to go for a run, they want to run fucking 20 miles. Everything that they do is nuts. So they're all heavy eaters, and because they train so much, like these fighters, their metabolisms for the most part are crazy. When we're training normally, that we're used to that Lance Armstrong type of thing where you're just shoveling food in your mouth. And what happens with a lot of these guys is, yeah, they're young dudes, they're fucking Taco Bell and fucking Mountain Dews, man, and so we have to keep smacking them in the back of the head. I'm one of the old guys, I'm in my 40s, so I've already been through I understand inflammation, I understand all this stuff, so I'm constantly yelling at these guys like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Some of them will listen, some of them won't, and as they start to get older, I tell all these guys, like, you better start taking care of your body from a nutritional standpoint. You better be stretching, hitting saunas. I mean, doing all that stuff I have to do just to keep my old ass on the mats.
So the one diet that I looked at, I think the guy was eating Taco Bell, which you had mentioned, or pizza at least once a day, each one.
Yeah.
When you guys, so from a powerlifting standpoint, I used to eat a whole large pizza every day just to
Yeah.
keep my weight up.
Yeah.
And again, I was burning a ton of calories. It's just something I had to do. Um, when you guys go into fight camps and you have certain weight classes to make, are they a little bit more diligent with what they're eating, or are they just restrictive as far as how much they're eating?
Um, well, it depends if they do it right or not. For example, a lot of these guys, we like to try to keep their weight pretty much in check. Try to keep them within like 20 pounds of where they're going to fight.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so they'll basically have like 20 pounds to lose for a fight. And that's basically 10 pounds of almost fat, and then maybe another 10 pounds or 10 to 15 pounds of water weight, which we'll do kind of like a last day cut. We'll just cut like 10 to 15 pounds of water weight, we'll march them on the scale, and then we'll immediately start rehydrating. Ideally, you would like for guys to manage their diets very well and do everything the correct way. That way, they don't hit a wall. For example, of course, we still need a certain amount of caloric intake on a daily basis, because otherwise, you see it all the time with people that after Christmas, they go get a membership somewhere and they want to start losing weight. They go on these crash diets. They hit a wall in that first month, and then all of a sudden they never make it back to the gym. That happens to fighters very quickly because they're in shape and all that stuff, but if they don't get enough calories in or do it the right way and they start to weight cut, they're going to hit a wall very fast. Their body's going to lose all the cortisol. They're going to get depressed. They're going to be a little bit more prone to injuries. When I used to cut weight incorrectly, I would get sick. I had a championship fight as an amateur where I was sick as a fucking dog, but I'd already sold a bunch of tickets. I'm like, fuck it, we're going to do this. And I went and fought, and afterwards, I won, luckily. It was a fucking shit show. And I almost had to go to the hospital afterwards because I was cutting weight on top of it as well too. And you want to see everyone do everything the right, everything the right way. Of course, we are still dealing with extremists. We're dealing with people that, typically young dudes, knuckleheads, and I say that affectionately because I was one of those knuckleheads. But yeah, you want them to listen, and this is what I kind of see with like a lot of these athletes. I kind of chip away at them. So maybe they don't listen to me for the first fight camp. Second fight camp, they're doing a little bit more of what I ask. And maybe third fight camp, they're doing a little bit more. And eventually, we kind of get them on like a little bit of a rhythm with things.
So you start to pick your battles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. So initially, when you get all these people that like to, like a lot of the fighters like to eat pizza and all that shit every day, and I eat pizza all the time as well. And I'm nowhere, I'm not, people get an idea of me. I'm a vegetarian. And people get an idea of me like I'm sitting here eating fucking clean as a whistle all day and stuff like that. Like, no, I'm a fucking pig. I eat very clean throughout the entire day. At night, it's a shit show. But
I do feel like if you're looking at MMA or UFC or whatever subdivision of fighting, if you want to get paid, I feel like you should take your nutrition seriously, though.
Yeah.
And some of you guys want to get paid. Like, you have your career, you have your gym, you run your meets. But a lot of these guys, like, this is their future, hopefully.
Yeah.
Like, I would put more pressure on myself as an athlete.
Yeah. You know what it is, too? A lot of these guys, they're training 2 to 3 times a day. Sometimes they're traveling to multiple gyms. So sometimes you get done training, your body's so hungry, you're just like, man, I just need to grab something to eat. And yeah, I'm sure you've been there as well. Sometimes, when you get that hunger, when you're training, and when your body needs the calories as well too, it's almost like crackhead needs some crack,
It's just off an impulse.
Yeah, like that impulse, and they're going to the first place they see, and or it's like their brain starts to shut down, and rather than like, okay, let me take an extra half hour to make sure I'm getting something that I should eat, everyone's kind of just running to Wendy's or some shit,
Maybe that'll be a new business for you. Meal prep.
Well, the meal prep thing is something I try to encourage everyone to do because it really is the simplest, easiest way to stay on top of some of those meals and stuff like that. So that way, yeah, you're not eating a bunch of shit. Like I used to, when I was a professional fighter, I would kind of take all my food to the gym. I would do my first session. I wouldn't eat in the morning. I would do my first session, which is typically a little bit more cardio based, to train for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then immediately I would sit down in the corner of the gym and I would start eating and typically clean stuff. Maybe I would take a nap for 15 or 20 minutes, just try to completely shut my body down, recover. Then you get ready for your next session. And so I would try to be a little bit more meticulous about that stuff because I was cutting a significant amount of weight to fight as well. But some of these other fighters, if you don't start off prepared every day, if you're not doing like a weekly meal plan or something like that, that's when you see a lot more of the hiccups with people and their nutrition and diets. You really have to be extremely proactive about it, I feel like, on a weekly basis, and you have to think ahead. It's the guys that don't do that. They're the ones that are typically going to eat more poorly. So
Well, outside of nutrition, what's popular for you guys to recover?
I always push a particular brand. Number one, we try to push recovery through not only through nutrition, drinking plenty of water, stuff like that, getting your rest, turning off from everything every once in a while as well. So there's, not only through nutritional ways to recover, there's a lot of other ways, massage, stuff like that, getting some sunlight,
You
fresh
guys do
air.
cryo? Is
Yeah,
that
a
yeah?
lot of guys do cryo. I have a sauna in my house, so I just typically just in the morning I'll set that thing up and I'll get in there. Um, Cryo, from what I hear, is absolutely phenomenal. A lot of guys are into that, ice baths, stuff like that. Nutritionally as well, there's a handful of supplements and things like that we try to typically recommend fighters take to deal with the inflammation, or when they're cutting, some of our athletes have to cut a significant amount of weight. So how do you cut weight and still keep your training up and not crash and burn as well? So we do have a couple of dietary things like we'll recommend for some of our athletes to take that have always been very good to us for our MMA athletes. So
What's just thinking about cutting weight again? What's the most extreme thing that you've seen somebody do to cut weight?
holy shit. Well, back in the day when we used to wrestle, before that there were weight cutting restrictions in wrestling. We were kids and we were cutting 20, 30 pounds every few days. Twice a week to wrestle, and none of that was unhealthy at all. It was literally just you would just stop eating a couple days before your match, spitting all day, and still training. I
Did you
guess
do the trash bag?
do the trash bags,
Yeah.
sauna suits. We have stuff, the other products you rub on your body in conjunction with all of that stuff. And, the worst thing you can do for a weight cut really is just to stop eating, and just do some kind of crash diet. That's terrible. So that's what we see a lot. We've also seen people taking diuretics illegally, which you shouldn't be taking. That'll wreck you because when you get dehydrated as well, it's not just people think you're just losing water weight. You're losing fluids from your brain, from your vital organs, from everything. It's not just your skin. So what happens is it leaves you more prone for concussions. I had a really bad weight cut one time. I was fighting up at the Mohegan Sun up in Connecticut. I was fighting on a big fight card, a huge fight card, and I had a really tough weight cut. I typically walked around at like 215, 220, and I was fighting at 185 pounds. It was really rough, and going up there, the Connecticut State Athletic Commission calls me and says that they lost my blood work. So then I had to stop and give blood on the way up. I'm literally 185 pounds. Like, I look like I'm sick.
It's probably easy to find your vein though.
Easy to find my vein, and that was the only time though I ever got dropped. I came out and fought a guy he's a top level fighter in the UFC right now, and we came out and fought, and he hit me with a hook. And next thing you know, like I'm like hanging onto his leg, and that's the only time I got a hard head. No one usually, I don't get dropped, put it that way. And one punch, bang, hook, when we started moving around, and that was the fight, And I particularly, that was a poor weight cut in conjunction with having to also to give blood on top of that. So I've seen a lot of bad things, and I've been a part of some shitty weight cuts and stuff like that. And they can be, people can get hurt. People can have to go to the hospital. I've seen some tragic stuff. People have died from bad weight cuts.
Yeah, on top of what it does to your body, your cognition, just
Yeah.
goes so far down, and you're just not as alert.
You're not
So
as alert. You're more temperamental. You kind of become an asshole when you're cutting weight. It's like, it literally is like one of those Snickers commercials, where they're like, you're acting like a real diva. Snickers. When guys start cutting weight, there's guys like a lot of my fighters. We're always ball busting and joking around and pretty extreme with that in these types of environments. But as guys start to cut weight and they get deep in their weight cuts, especially like the week of the fight, we tippy toe around those guys like a little bit because you know definitely everyone is way more temperamental.
do you try to get them to sleep more to combat the cortisol effects of dieting?
Yeah, so it's very important, stuff like that. They're getting their rest. We have fighters, especially guys like Pat Sabatini. Back when he was early days in his professional, professional time for him, we would have to kick him out of the gym all the time because he just always wanted to train. He never felt like he was training enough as well. So there were times where I'm like, dude, you need to get the fuck out of here. Go get some rest, bro.
But he's one of those guys. I don't know him personally, but everything I've seen from him, he looks like he's like a high energy. He looks real like lean year round.
Yeah.
So does he have to cut a lot of weight for his shows?
Yeah, he cuts a lot.
Does he?
Yeah, but he trains. You like I said, he's one of those guys where he's so self motivated. Throughout the entire all this coronavirus shit, we've been in the gym and we've been training the whole entire time. Still sparring, still moving around, working on new things, incorporating new skills and stuff. Like I said, he's just one of those guys that, even with this stuff going down, we're like, all right, man, I'll see you at 11. Let's put that work in.
So he's in the CFCC. So
The CFFC.
CFFC.
Yep.
So what's it take for somebody like him, who's won a good amount of fights in that category? What's it take for somebody like that to get the call?
Well, so the problem with Pat is his weight class. The UFC he fights at 145 pounds. The UFC has more 145-pound fighters than any other division. The last time I heard, they had around like 60 to 70 fighters in that one weight class alone. Where like 205, they've got like maybe 20 or 30. So there's such a log jam. So the UFC knows about him. Everyone knows about him. So really, it's just a matter of just getting a phone call one day with him, particularly, which we hope, comes sooner rather than later. But other fighters could be a little different depending upon their weight class, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But ultimately, the UFC and some of these promotions, they don't always take the best fighters. It's not about that. It still is an entertainment business. They're going to pick guys that they feel like are going to be super entertaining. All these guys are personalities and all this other stuff. So it's a entertainment business before it's anything else, and that's important for people to understand. While the UFC, I feel like, consistently has the best fighters across the board, they're not always the best fighters.
Okay.
So it's there is a little bit of that WWE aspect with everything. They don't want boring fighters. And that's not Pat at all. Pat's a finisher. He fucks people up, head kicks them, submits them, you name it. I mean, he's nuts, right? But you never know exactly what they're looking for and who and why and what, how many people they have their weight class, how many people are signed. So the big thing is just keep everyone ready and keep everyone going. Hopefully you get a phone call. And if not, there are plenty of other promotions.
So when I think of a 145-pound man, I think that's pretty small.
Yeah.
So what happens if a guy like that, with Pat's experience, bumps into a guy who's 6'2" at a bar? He's a real big guy. He's built well. He maybe has some street credibility. Like what happens in a situation like that? I mean, we talked about diffusing it before, which would probably be the goal.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Could somebody with Pat's experience at a smaller weight class handle himself properly with somebody who's a big guy on the street?
It would take Pat about 5 seconds. 5 seconds tops. People don't don't understand. It's hard to quantify the difference between a trained professional fighter and an average Joe, even someone with limited fight experience. Doctors train 10, 15 years to become doctors, surgeons, and all that stuff. I have 30 years of fighting under my belt. Pat has been doing this stuff since he's been 4 years old. We have more training experience in our profession than most doctors do that are doing brain surgery on people. So what happens is every single day since we've been kids, we've been constantly putting ourselves in these situations and becoming battle tested. And when it comes down to fighting, yeah, we don't want to fight or do anything like that. But if you ever fucked with a professional fighter, it would be curtains so fast. And these are guys, like, once again, like, if I want to build a house, I go to an experienced contractor. I go to people who know what they're doing, people that do this stuff every day. And our job every day is to figure out how to kill you as fast as we possibly can. Not like beat you up. Like, our job is to know how to kill you faster. Really, if you really want to get down to the nuts and bolts of what we do.
Right.
Our job is to fucking kill you without breaking a sweat. So if you even try to throw a punch on some of us or whatever, now granted, if you're a giant football player and you're a killer athlete, yeah, that could sway things like a little bit. It could keep you alive a little faster, But there are videos online. You can see there's a video with a guy named Roger Huerta. He's a Bellator fighter, and he fights at 145 pounds. And he fought one of the Texas offensive linemen, a football player, in a bar one day where this football player hit a woman. And you know how big those guys are down in Texas. And Roger Huerta beat the shit out of him, about as fast as you can beat the shit out of somebody.
Do you guys ever train like that? Where you put a heavyweight in with somebody like Pat, just so that way they kind of learn each other?
Oh, yeah.
That's normal?
Yeah, well, you want to play around and have some fun like that, every once in a while. But ultimately, when you have these professional athletes and stuff like that, guys that rely on earning money from, we're careful about who they go with. And also, too, we don't really let guys spar at our gym or do anything like that aren't approved to do that, because people can get hurt and things like that. So typically, Pat moves with heavyweights and stuff like that all the time. Guys that have been in the UFC and all that. But if we're gonna do hard training, it's not worth putting those guys together because it's not realistic for them. It's not gonna benefit either one of them. But if they're screwing around doing some like light, sparring or something like that, that's one thing. But when you're talking about body weight and guys being on the ground and stuff, really to prepare for a fight or anything, it's just not even realistic for them. But, really the professional, we try to encourage everyone to learn how to fight, because once again, what happens is, even if you kind of know how to fight, if I come up behind you and put you in a chokehold and you start freaking out, once again, if you don't have a little bit of that IQ to deal with some of that stuff like that, or not even IQ, but if you're not
like
used to doing it,
right?
yeah, exactly. If you're not used to giving the proper reactions for certain things, you're just going to go to sleep. And if someone fucked me at a bar, I wouldn't even have to hit them. I could literally just walk around the bar and choke everyone out. Like, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. And just so people just don't understand that. And so that's another reason. But also, too, even a professional fighter, we could walk into a bar and we could be sitting there and we don't know that you're a fucking professional fighter. That's why we don't start shit with anyone. We don't know, because we understand that you don't have to look like a big tough guy to be a complete killer. A guy like Sabatini as well, we joke around with him all the time because he's the nicest dude you will ever meet. The nicest guy. If you hung out with him for 2 seconds, you were like, there's no way this guy is tornado kicking people in the head.
Everybody.
Yeah. There's no way this guy, he literally says things like golly and gee still. And he loves, like, he's a family guy. He's like so close with his family, and he's the nicest guy you meet. You'd be sitting next to him and you would have no idea that guy would kill everyone around you without even breaking a sweat. And that's the way like a lot of fighters are.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like most of the time it's the people that you least expect, and then your big tough guys that act like big tough guys usually aren't really fitting the part.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's the guys you got to worry about nowadays that they don't, like that like little millennial look, and they're killers. They are absolute killers. It's funny. I love seeing it because I'm in the gym, with these guys, and yeah, and they just look like such goofballs. They come walking into the gym, and then you just see them on the mats. Man, they are on your back, and they are just taking it to you. And then as soon as they're done, they're just like, go back to, nerding it out. You would never know. It's a lot of fun to see. I mean, it really is across the board.
So to kind of switch gears a little bit, MPR, how long have you been doing that?
I think we've been open for 9 years,
Has
eight
it
or
been
eight or
nine?
9 years. Yeah, something like that.
And your first facility was over in Fallsington?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then-
we were in Falls Township, not in Fallsington. So yeah, we were in Fairless Hills.
Okay. It was in that big white building, though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
I remember going in
Yep.
there. And then, so you're now behind the movie theater, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's next for MPR? Obviously, COVID's going to reshape things, but
Yeah.
what's next?
We don't know.
No.
We're open. So right now we're still getting our athletes ready. That never stopped. But we have a lot of members that already are coming back. We have new people that are signing up, all those types of things. But we are fortunate that we are big enough where we have so much flexibility to run like no contact classes, do things like that. So our main thing right now is we set up a bunch of no contact classes as well, and the purposes with that is to once again gauge the landscape of what's going to happen over the next few months. Is there going to be a second wave? You know, if there's not going to be a second wave, we'll initially, I think what we'll do over a little bit of time is go back to all of our contact classes. But if there is a second wave or there's something else we have to be worried about as well, we want to make sure that members have a little bit of peace of mind. You know, if you're a parent with a kid, you know, why not put them in no contact classes? Why not be a little bit more safe than sorry in certain things? So our thing is right now is we have it set up on both fronts to make people feel comfortable about training, to kind of get people to dip their toes back in the water a little bit. But also moving forward, we have it set up this way because this could be the future of the way things are going to have to be. We don't know. So we just kind of try to strategically put ourselves in a place where we can make the right decisions moving forward to do so.
I wonder if you know how right before shutdown there was gun lines at every gun store.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
hours and hours waits.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if now that it's over, people are like, well, maybe I should just learn how to handle myself better, and they're signing up at places like yours.
Yeah, they should. And when all this shit started going down, I was kind of sitting there telling everyone, like, see, motherfuckers, this is what we've been telling you. You know, like, what's going to happen? You know, like, go get a gun, too, though. You know, we're all mostly gun owners, you know, like I'm not stopping bullets with my teeth and shit, you know, like, so it's protect yourselves. Be prepared. And there are a lot of different ways to be prepared through something like this. Okay, you can be prepared through understanding self-defense. You can be prepared with firearms training, being secure in your home, being able to protect your family, all those kind of things. You can prepare yourselves by number one, being in fucking shape. Stop being a fucking lazy fucking fat ass. Get off the fucking couch and take care of your health. Like that shit drives me crazy because one of the reasons we're closed in quarantine is because people don't take any accountability for themselves or have any self-discipline to make themselves not potentially a target to become sick. If people just did that shit, we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. We wouldn't have so many people potentially vulnerable to getting flus, to getting sick, to heart disease, to dying. So take care of yourself in that respect as well. Also, too, take care of yourself, prep a little bit. I mean, I know like people, you know, like talk shit on like preppers and stuff, but when all this was going down, they're the ones sitting back like, see? You know, like
They had all the toilet paper.
Yeah. Get all that, stock up a whole room of toilet paper, you know. But have ways for. I've already had all this shit because I'm just kind of a nut, anyways. You know, ways to purify your water, extra food, ammunition, a plan, a strategy if anything happens. I've already had masks and stuff. So when all this stuff started going down, I was able to donate masks to people. I was putting bags together for of rubber gloves and masks for elderly people. I was able to actually assist people and help people throughout all this because I was prepared going into it. So rather than get caught with your pants down, you know, we can all help out as far as for a community if we're all prepared for something like this. We don't have to rely on the government, which will never do shit right. You know, is for communities, the way we all get through this as a community, you take your community. Number one, you make yourself less of a target to get sick. You make yourself stronger mentally, you make your home stronger, you make your family stronger. That's automatically going to make your community stronger. Then it's going to make it you available for if you do need to provide help to somebody or whatever. You can be there to lend a hand. You can be there to help set up community outreach things for people around you, which we were able to do, and I was able to see other people do as well. But a lot of people are sitting there with their thumbs up their asses, and they'll continue to do so. People, you know, I know so many people that smoke who are dying from this. A lot of smokers and obese people or elderly people. Everyone's going to get old. You can't do anything about that, right? Stop smoking, motherfuckers. Like, what the fuck are you doing? When I see people smoking after this, I'm going to be slapping cigarettes out of people's mouths, walking down the street. Like, this shit's going to, it drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah. There's just a certain level of accountability to everything, and I don't know if we're going to get there.
No.
Like as a society, we're overly dependent on other people fixing our problems. Yeah. And I think if people don't learn from this experience, we're just gonna end up in the same hole, but worse.
Like people rag on doctors all the time, you know, for over prescribing people medication and shit. Well, what are you gonna do as a doctor? Because you know, Mary over there isn't gonna take her fucking ass out and start, exercising and losing weight.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So they're just like, okay, well, here, take this pill. But it has to be on all sides. People have to take personal responsibility for themselves. People have to be disciplined. They don't want to be. Some people are, some people aren't. And unfortunately, that's the way it's always going to be. People want to band-aid things. People are more than happy to put a mask on rather than stop smoking. Like, it's absolutely crazy to me. But what we need to do is make sure, like, you know, I know I annoy the hell out of a lot of people on social media because I'm always very vocal with how I feel about these things. And I'm vocal because I do care. I give a shit. I don't want to see my neighbors or people anywhere and people I love, my family. I don't want to see them getting sick. I don't want to see them. I want to see them live a happier life. I want to see them be able to walk up the fucking steps, without carrying an extra 100 pounds strapped to their backs. Like that shit matters to me. So I'm always like, what are we doing here? And obviously, like, even my family, they're like, will you please shut the fuck up? Like, you're driving me crazy, right? And I get it, but I care about that kind of stuff. I want to see everyone happier and healthier.
Yeah. So speaking of which, like outside of the fight training, you also do fitness
Yeah,
classes too,
yeah.
right? So I actually knew a few people that were going to MPR just for fitness, and that's how I found out that you guys were doing that. So is that like a boot camp that you're offering?
We do boot camps. Um, we've got boot camps we do. We have right now we've got our weight room open, and we've had a lot of people just sign up just for weight room memberships because all the gyms are closed. So that people have been taking advantage of that as well. But yeah, we've got a phenomenal boot camps, and which we're actually getting ready to start running again this Wednesday.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of our boot camps right now. We're doing outside, so we're doing Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings. We have a phenomenal boot camp instructor, Swimmin' Irene. She's one of those instructors too. She's out there working out with you. She doesn't just me like when I run stuff like that. I'm just kind of like pointing and shit.
Yeah.
Lift that. Let's do that. Let's go. Come on, guys, harder. She's literally doing all the burpees with you. She's out there. I mean, she is ripped. She is rocking. She is phenomenal. She's super motivated. Always in shape. She's one of the trainers. She lives it, breathes it, does it type of people, and it's just contagious when you're around her.
They're always the best coaches is
The
when they
best.
have, real life experience in what they're actually coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have these people, they live it and they do it and they're in it and they're passionate about it. Hell yeah, it makes it a lot easier to follow suit.
So if our audience wants to follow you, follow your gym, or follow Sambo, how would they do that?
A few different ways. We're all over social media on everything. So you can easily just kind of look at the gym, like MPR Endurance. You can go to the website. There's a bunch of social media links, or on Facebook and MPR MMA for Instagram. I'm Erik Purcell, which is ERIK _ Purcell. But we're all over Instagram. We have YouTube channels. We have like a lot of great videos and content for people that maybe want to start learning how to kind of box and move around. So we've got some instructional videos, but really nothing, once again, is going to supplement just getting into the gym and having trained professionals sit there and help you and correct you and help teach you, because fighting isn't just fighting. There's strategy involved, and there's a lot of strategy in self-defense. But once again, you have to do this repetitiously. Like, you have to be in there training, because you could do a seminar where you think you're learning how to get out of a fucking move or something, right? People forget that, and they don't know how to react in these situations. So get in and train, look us up. It's what we do. We're here for you. We're part of the community. We train FBI and all the police around, and all the police have been coming in and using our gym while we've been shut down. So it's a place to be.
Do you have like a video tour? Your facility's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Just from the first facility, which wasn't bad at all, to the second one, it's just gorgeous. Do you have like a
Thank you.
tour so people can really see what you're doing there?
We do. I think on the main page of our YouTube page, which if you just type in like MPR Endurance, like Michael Paul Robert MPR, it'll take you to the homepage. And I think it's maybe like one of the first videos that plays. I kind of do like this athlete search and kind of take you like on a little video tour through the gym and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we're a large facility. We have a lot of different areas to train in. We probably have more mat space than almost any other gym in the state of Pennsylvania besides maybe Penn State. So we've got a lot of mat space, a lot of bags and stuff like that. Great instructors, great team. We don't do any of the politics stuff. We have a lot of people that come in from other gyms. We just had a former UFC champion in yesterday training, and so we get a lot of guys in, a lot of high level guys, and just like to have some fun, mix it up.
Cool. So, guys, if you can, go take a look at what Erik's doing with MPR Endurance, and I'm sure we'll have you on again.
I would love to come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Erik.
Appreciate it.